Hello everybody, how are you doing? Today is our fourth episode with Talks with Adri, and today we're going to talk about human origin. I highly recommend that you watch the previous 3 episodes in order to completely understand what we're going to talk today. We're going to see the different perspectives from science and from other sources, channelers, and also people who has been able to tap with the Akashic records. All right, let's start. Let's see what science have to say. Here we have Darwin's theory that says that we were coming from apes and that there was a missing link in which we turned into humans. Now we know that this wasn't accurate. When the Homo sapiens sapiens appeared, there were at least other 9 types of humans living at the same time. So the homogeneous come from different sources. Even though we are the only ones that are still alive, we carry in our DNA the genetic information of these other beings. So let's see what science says. So here we have that 50 million years ago, the apes colonized Earth. And they continue like that until 6 million years ago, when the hominids separate from the rest and they evolve differently. So when they decide to move to a different territory and maybe eat other things and maybe experience different situations, they evolve different. And this made that for 2.8 million years ago, the Homo genes started living the Stone Age, which means that we were able to develop tools and we were able to live in caves and in small groups. This changed dramatically when 800,000 years ago we discovered fire. When we discovered fire, there was a very big jump in the evolution because we were able to survive in the winter. We started cooking food, and this made it more nutritious and less dangerous. At the same time, we were able to scare out predators, and we were able to make longer the days to perform more tasks. All these new circumstances allow us to change from being nomads to be sedentary. And it helps to create small communities. This made the need to start developing a language to communicate with each other. And 300,000 years ago, our species, Homo sapiens sapiens, appeared. But we were not alone. We have these brothers that we see here, or other human species that lived parallel or contemporary with these Homo sapiens sapiens. We really don't know what happened to them, but we can guess. Many of their skulls had appeared with injuries of blows or of war. And in the same way that humans develop the tools and develop the language, we also have a tendency to be a little bit violent. We not only brought to extinctions the mammoths, the moas, and many other species, but at the same time we have changed our weather, our climate, we have basically destroyed the forests, completely changed the atmosphere and the environment of the planet. So we see that cooperatively we can be a very dangerous species. And these haven't changed, because if you see, like in the modern world, since the Romans end up with Carthage, and then when the British colonized Australia and American conquest of the West, the Spanish arriving to America, we really have destroyed entire groups of population, and with this all the information and the culture behind. And more modern times, the genocides of Rwanda, of Darfur, of Myanmar, Iraq, many things that are going on in the planet that connect us with this savage period. We really don't know what happened to them, but it is very possible that after the spread of the Homo sapiens all around Africa, we were competing for territory, and we were competing also for resources, as we continue doing it today. So Nevertheless, we found those groups in the way when we were just expanding, and we breed and we mate with them, so we carry the lineage, the DNA information of our ancestors in our blood. So their information is not completely gone. Later we're going to see that 50,000 years ago we were able to develop cultures, these small communities, and the need to communicate and the way that they learn to do things became part of a group, of a culture. And they wanted to express this by doing the cave paintings, maybe by singing. We start developing instruments. We create a past, a present, and a future because we were able to communicate through oral tradition the way we do the things. We were able to live these drawings, to perform many things that allow our civilization to evolve. Here we're going to see that appeared the man of the Cro-Magnon, which is the early European modern human. But before, we weren't exactly like that. And this is a mix that includes the DNA of many of these other ancestors. With the DNA fossils, it is possible to track like which group or which other species of humans we carry in our DNA. And there are things that are amazing to know, that for example, the people at the Pacific Islands and certain people in New Zealand carry information of a species of human that we don't know, that it is still not discovered. Things changed dramatically again, another point in evolution, when humans were able to make agriculture, when we discovered agriculture. This happened 12,000 years ago. The first civilization, and this was able to create the first civilizations. Here I want to explain something that it is very important, and it is called the 100 monkey effect. There is something that it is around Mother Earth, that it is called the Christ consciousness or the collective subconsciousness, according to Carl Jung, as he's going to explain in psychology later on. When we as a species learn something, we gain it for the whole group. When we reach the critical mass, we gain it for the whole group. How does it work? So here we have a monkey, a Japanese monkey, that liked to eat the potatoes, but he didn't like it with sand. One day he discovers that he can wash the potato. And when he started washing the potato, others look what he's doing and they copy. And then we have a group of monkeys that wash the potatoes. Then the others, the neighbors, also copy it. And then this knowledge is spread through all the island. But after a while, this also started happening in the other islands, which the monkeys were not able to see. And then it happens through to all the species around the world. They learned that they could wash the potatoes. How this happened? They just thought that they could do it and they were able to happen. This happens because there is this grid of consciousness around the earth and they reach the critical mass. Later, the scientists wanted to prove it with humans. So they made a drawing with different faces, and the faces were like camouflaged one with the other. And they show the picture to a group of people and they say, how many faces do you see? And they were able to find out at least 7 or 8 faces. Then they made it to another group and they published it in the internet, in the web. And many people were able to see more faces, like around 12. After this, and many people did the exercise, the more that they see it, we were able to find out more and more faces every time, 15, only with the same time looking the same picture. It is like if this information is grabbed and we are able to see, okay, this is already here and we can see beyond or a little bit more. So this is the way that we share knowledge or the evolution of our species, something that really helps us. And this is exactly what happened with what we see here in the fire, with the fire and with the agriculture. Both things. So agriculture didn't start it only in one place on earth. It started appearing in many different places at the same time. These allow humans to create the first civilizations. We're going to see that because the agriculture allows the people to specialize, also we were improving our food, our nutrition, because we were not only eating meat, we were also introducing different types of grains, of plants and all that, having a more balanced diet. And I was able to trust the other person that is going to provide me the resources and the energy so I can perform my task that is also going to benefit the collectively. So through cooperation, we were able to evolve and to make this jump in evolution. And the more that we specialized in these tasks and the more that we contribute for the collectively, we were able to have very advanced civilizations such as the Sumerians that left the records in the Sumerian tablets. This is the first time that we have records of a civilization that it's written, or at least the one that the most antique that we have recently found, the Sumerian tablets. And after the Sumerian tablets appeared and all the civilization started arising, we also have the Egyptian dynasties that were 3,500 years ago, the Indus Valley of civilization, also the Mesopotamia culture. So if you see, after agriculture, many of the other civilizations appears. So small villages that we have here 50,000 years ago became cities, the cities became kingdoms, the kingdoms became empires, and this is all the development of humanity. So the Mayans civilization 2,000 years ago, the Chinese empire and the Greek civilization 1.2 thousand years ago, the Roman Empire 700 years ago, and all these before the Common Era or before Christ. The Romans crossed the line to after Christ or after the Common Era, and we can see that the Europeans arrived to America in 1492, unifying, let's say, the world, getting to know all the cultures around the world, and we are today, 2000, after the Common Era, with these buildings and with these cities and with the development that we know today. So if you see, it took several years, like 50 million years and then 800,000 years. And now we have such a speed of evolution and communication and developing more complex society with a very evolved brain, let's say. If we compare ourselves with our ancestors 50,000 years ago, individually they were more advanced or they were more developed because they had to be athletes to survive. They also had a very clear picture of their territory. They had very good reflexes and many things because they need all these to survive. If you compare to us today, maybe we go to the jungle or to a savage place, virgin place, we're not going to be able to survive. But collectively, we are more developed. If you only compare how this evolution is running and accelerating ourselves, a kid that is in high school today with a scholarship of 100 years ago, maybe this kid has more knowledge, more understanding of the whole world, and he has in his mind like a very big picture that wasn't possible to have 100 years ago. So this is how we are really evolving, how our brain has more capacities to understand this. But this is happening very, very fast. So I'm sure that when I die, I'm not going to die in the same world that I know today. That is for sure, if we compare to how the world is accelerating today. But one thing that concerns me is that even though we have more modern cities and we have more modern tools, and maybe I just change my knife for a computer today, there is something that we haven't changed, and it is this capacity of being so savage. There should be something different. Our existence cannot continue being like that we kill not only ourselves, other groups, but at the same time the whole environment. We need to grow in consciousness to really make an evolution, to really make a different step. And this in human history we have not seen. We as a species continue doing exactly the same that our ancestors did. 300,000 years ago. Let's compare with the other sources. In these other sources, I'm going to talk about the information taken from the Rosicrucians, the information taken from Plato, the information taken or channeled by Edgar Cayce, Matias DeStefano, Diana Cooper. I'm going to take also information from Rudolph Steiner, the Freemasons, and the Theosophists. And what it is very special here is that they agree that the human evolution was not a line, that we are a result of different experiments and also the breeding with different types of beings that came from the stars that were not in Mother Earth. So let's see, what do they say? So according to them, 30 million years ago was the first version of humans. In science, we really haven't discovered anything that is parallel to this or that give us a proof of this. More than 2 million years ago, around 3 million years ago, the Galactic Confederation invited other beings to Earth to come. What happened here? We're going to see that Mother Earth chose us, chose our species to be the neurons of the planet, to guide the evolution of this planet. The Galactic Confederation understood this and they say, okay, so we're going to invite different beings from other planets, from the stars, to help us evolve, especially in consciousness, to help the evolution of the planet. So the first one that came were the giants. These guys located at the poles, North Pole and South Pole especially. They were coming from cold planets, so they adapt well in these weathers. They were the farmers of the universe. They kept the records or the seeds of the DNA of many of the people there, and they started storing this information on the ice and on the water, because water and ice is capable of storage information. And the idea is that this water flows all around the earth and it was able to spread the codes and the energy when the people drink it or when the other species benefit from the water, like we all benefit from water in our planet. So they were releasing these codes of evolution that we were just acquiring through the water. They were hermitages, they didn't really want to deal too much with humans or with other species, they were doing their task, their work. But they are going to teach us something later on in the way. They just arrived 1 million years ago, but they stayed here for a while. And we are later going to see, when we talk about the Egyptian legacy, when we talk about the Toltec legacy, when we talk about the things written in the Bible, that they explain that they were giants here that lived at the same time with humans. They are going to teach us something very important, and it is to handle the seeds of the plants that were here in the same way that they handle the seeds of the DNA. Because thanks to that, we were able to survive, especially here in the glacial period that was from 115,000 years ago to more or less 11,700 years ago. This is very, very important. So one thing is that we didn't really develop this knowledge. Apparently, somebody gave it to us, is what these other sources are going to say. 500,000 years ago arrived the reptilians. The reptilians, we talked about them the previous episode, and they were going to locate especially at the warm part of the earth. So let's say around the equatorial line. Then came the Alethea. They were a heart-centered species from another dimension, so it's not easy that we find their maybe skulls or bone or remnants of them, because they were living in another dimension. So there was not like a physical body like we understand it today. So they were in a parallel reality. And especially they went to the seas, to the Pacific Ocean. In the triangle that we can say now was New Zealand, the Hawaiian Islands, and this southern Pacific Ocean. But they also left their information in the water. And they were able to communicate through vibration and telepathically with the whales, with the dolphins. And they carry the information of this civilization. They were going to build the civilization of Mu. Later, in future episodes, we're going to talk about that. 50,000 years ago arrived the Anunnaki. They arrived because they were running away from their planet because it was dying. Their planet was called Nibiru. They arrived to Earth and they wanted to take from here the resources in order to save their planet, or they wanted to survive and continue their existence through the DNA of the creatures that were here, these hominids that they find out. And apparently it was the mix from them that started, these previous beings already started mixing and mating with humans, and maybe that is why it is so diverse. But the Anunnaki are going to teach us how to build the societies, how to make civilizations. At the same time, they needed to organize the creatures that were here to work for their own purpose, for their own agenda. So that's why they taught us things, and at the same time we had to worship them, because they were like our gods, as we're going to see later when we, in the next episode, when we discuss about the Sumerian tablets and the Mesopotamian, Babylonian, and Sumerian civilizations. Later, 26,000 years ago, there was the experiment of Atlantis. And for this, the Pleiadians and the Arcturians arrived. The Pleiadians couldn't really match with our DNA because they are also an etheric species. They don't reproduce through sex like we do or like other of these species did. But they are going to leave the seed in our mind, especially the need of going back to center, develop the spirituality. And they also help us to develop our emotions. They also taught us the arts, the music, the painting, and many ways of expressing the emotions, that it is the way that we can connect and plug with our spirituality. And that's why in the Greek civilization later they are going to call the Pleiadians or the Pleiades, this cluster, they are going to call it the Muse, because it is like where the inspiration comes from, what we learn from them. The Arcturians instead were able to mix with that, with our DNA, and we carry also their information. So this experiment of Atlantis unfortunately didn't work because another species arrived, and we're going to see also this when we explain Atlantis. And there was a need to clean out everything, all the disaster that happened. And then the glacial period ends and the ice started melting. And with this, the Great Flood that lasted for a while, like 2,000 years, cleaning all the earth of many things. But the survivals of these are the ones who are going to build the following civilizations, the civilizations that we see here. They already had the knowledge of the agriculture, they already had the knowledge of the fire. They were able to survive through this. And they were not going to do it alone. So the Ascended Masters sent thought, and apparently other beings, other Ascended Masters arrived to Earth to help the evolution of these civilizations. And we learned many, many things. For example, Thoth said that he helped the people that were like in small communities in Egypt, but he taught them many things, and he built himself the pyramids, and he taught them how to use this knowledge and how to create the civilization and pass the knowledge through all the dynasties. Also thought is going to be Hermes Trismegistus in ancient Greece. So we're going to see that many Ascended Masters came and they help us to evolve, to develop. They came with their knowledge, and these civilizations, like out of nowhere, just they knew, like this, in the Sumerian tablets is written that the gods that came, They helped them, and they had all this mathematics, all this astrological knowledge, all this science knowledge, all this. And from the day zero of their civilization, they were able to build all these structures. But then it starts like a declining of their culture. It's like if the Ascended Masters came, taught us all this, and instead of us keeping evolving and learning from where they were, no, when they left, our civilization declined until basically they disappeared and mixed with our civilizations. But having all these civilizations relatively, I know that it sounds for humans this is a long period, 6,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000 and 2,000 years up to date. Sounds like a long period of time, but if we compare this period of time to what happened before, this is really rapid, really accelerated. And they saw that humans were really not making it, even though we have their help. So what happened? They sent these three beings that show us the path towards the evolution, that show us that you can do it, that you can grow up in consciousness. There is a way of freeing yourself. So came Christ, Jesus, that was the one that divided the eras, like from before Christ and after Christ. And then we have Buddha that came a little bit before Christ, and he also showed us a way. And then came Muhammad. And if you see, they basically came also like in a very close period of time. So, and happening in different parts of the world, saying, hey, there is a way for you to evolve in consciousness rapidly. There should be a greater purpose for us to be here, and it should not be for us to continue killing ourselves here. If we really want to make a difference in evolution, we definitely have to go this step forward that these guys propose here, and it doesn't have to be in that way. Ways are all the ones that you want, but we have to go back to our unity and to discover our real power. Some things that come to my mind is why we have such a great body, such a body that can perform many things. Why do we have such an incredible brain, able to perform many things, and we use only 20 or less than 30% of our brains? And we don't really use the capacity of our bodies. Yes, we maybe can become athletes and do all these things, but there is an energetic source that communicates all our centers. With chanting, with breathing. There are many things that we can do with our bodies that we don't know. When the Great Flood happened, also happened something else that was called the polar shift. The magnetism of the earth changed. And this altered our memory. We completely lost all the memory of the things that we had here, and that's why we had to start from zero, let's say, these civilizations that we have here. Also, if we want to go and track the records of these civilizations, well, the Roman Empire is going to burn the Alexandria's library that was supposed to contain the information of these civilizations or what happened during this period of time. So there are moments in history where we have lost our memory, where we cannot really track what had happened to us. But what we know is that we should make a difference. It is definitely needed that we do something else in order to evolve. Because if we continue like that, we see that there is no really an evolution. Our societies become more complex, we develop more tools, more things, but we are basically inside the same beings. I would like to stop here and break into the human origin. And in the next session, we're going to see how was the human origin for the different cultures. And we're going to see how these match with many of the information that I have presented here. So I hope that you have a lot of information to discuss about. Please send me your comments, your questions, and see you next time. Bye!